Hey everybody, how we all doing tonight? Give everybody a chance to get acclimated here a little bit. All right, who we got in the chat? Let's see here. Congratulations to Eric Germann on being the first comment tonight. Good to see you, Eric. Hi, Linda Horn. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Jess Mack. It was a hot one out there today, no doubt. Hey, Bill and Crystal. Hi, Tina and Mike. Hey, Miriam. Hi, Amy. How you doing? Hey, Val's Cisco, and who else we got here? Hey, Suze. Angie, how you doing? Hi, Joe and Marcia. Marge Tangeman, how are you? Let's see here. Hi, Beth Reedy. Hey, Sherry Louth. Dave and Amy are here. I got back from my oldest daughter and boyfriend's new house down by the Mary City pool, gutting the whole upstairs bathroom. That sounds not at all fun. So, all right. Hey, Jan. Glad you and Scott are here tonight. Hey, Judy Brown. How you doing? Thanks for joining us here tonight. All right. I'm going to give everybody a chance to get in here tonight. I'm assuming that all of you got my text message earlier today. Actually, like an hour and a half ago. Did everybody understand what I was talking about? How Thursday is going to be our last day? Good, Amy. I'm glad you're doing well. Hi, Tim and Candy. Tim and Candy are in the house. Did everybody get my text message from earlier today? Understand it okay? How Thursday will be our last day. We'll go down to Wednesdays after that. So I'll send out a text message as I normally would, establishing Wednesdays. But that's we'll probably go topical after that. Gina and Mike did not get the text. Tina and Mike, are you not on my text message thing here? Let me figure out why. I'll figure out why that is in a little bit. So, okay. Well, do you normally get text messages from me, Tina and Mike and Marge? Okay, because I normally send it out at 6:26 every day. So if you don't get it at 6:26 every day, then yeah, you're not getting it. So yeah, for those of you who didn't get it, this is the official announcement. Thursday night will be our last night because we'll finish up chapter. I don't know what number this is, but the one we're on for tonight about sharing your faith. And then we got one chapter left. And since we've been taking them 2 per night, that will be where we go from there. So how's come I got so many of you? I send out like 85 texts or something. How's come you are here and not getting the text messages? Oh my gosh, are you guys for real? How are you guys even getting here without the link? Do you guys get on the YouTube channel? That's hilarious. Okay. Anyways, yeah, you guys are awesome for being here. You must find your own way here, which is fantastic. So just know, because I'm not gonna well, I can add if you want to be added to the list and you have my text number, text me right now. I'm not going to get it till the stream is over, but if you want to get text messages from me about the future live streams, you can send me a text message right now. Okay. All right. I mean, if you don't want the text message, that's fine too. But if you would like to be on the text message ring that I send out, just go ahead and text me right now, and I'll add you to the list when I'm done here tonight. So, all right, cool. Yeah, just if you have my text message, text me or something, and I'll add you to the list. Just go ahead and do it now. My phone's off. I'll get it when I'm done. So, I'm gonna have to plug my phone in. All right. Well, I have to admit, I had some disparaging comments to make about the chapter last night. But I have to admit, after rereading it tonight, I didn't have quite as much trouble with it tonight as I did last night. So I guess maybe I just wasn't as outraged tonight as I was last night. So um, excuse me. But yeah, so I felt a little better about it tonight. Okay, if you don't have my number, you can email me and I'll figure out how to get you on there. Just send me an email and I will figure out a way to add you. So actually, email me your phone number. That would probably be the easiest way because I do not want to put my phone number out on a document that's going out to the entire internet because I don't want the entire world calling me. Yes, you have my email. Email me your phone number. I'll figure it out from there. Okay, let's move on. All right. So tonight we're going to be looking at that. How are my friends in Cincinnati doing? About as awful as you would expect. The funeral is Saturday, and I had a Zoom meeting with them earlier today, and they just look pale, just pale. I don't know how else to say it. They're just devastated. For those of you who don't know, Amy's asking about friends of mine from Cincinnati who their son passed away from an aneurysm just very, very suddenly. And he basically died the same way Shelby Jacobs did. She got her injury from an accident. His was, I guess, a birth defect. But same result. He died the same way. And so just very just a god awful situation. So yeah, so that was not a fun conversation to have. But I'm going to go down and be with them on Saturday, and I'm going to officiate over the funeral. Also, when I lived in Cincinnati, or when I lived in Lima prior to moving here, yes, Jack Pizol passed away, and I'm going up to do his funeral. He was my neighbor when I lived at Forest Park. He was my next door neighbor, and he just loved my dog I had back in those days, and just thought my dog was the best thing. And my dog would go over and take the most massive craps in his yard, and he would just be like, "Oh, it's okay." I'm just Jack, that dumb dog. I'm like, oh my gosh, I swear he would wait till he got into Jack's yard to do that, and I just thought that's awesome. So, but anyway, he was the nicest man, and he passed away earlier this week too. In fact, his daughter called me and asked me to call and talk to him, and I called and talked to him, and he died like 2 days later. So, hasn't been my favorite week I ever had. I'm just going to be entirely straight with you. I wrote the funeral for the kid in Cincinnati. He was 15. Wrote a funeral for him today. I mean, what do you say about all that potential and the dreams the parents had? And he was good in school. He was a good soccer player. He, you know, that's part of the deal. Part of the deal when you do what I do for a living, and it just, you know, I'm going to go down and say what needs to be said, and that's where we're going to go. So, anyways, thank you for asking. Appreciate all your prayers. And if I look tired this week, it's because that's what I'm doing. All right, now time to go on to some cool stuff. I'm on page 204 for those of you who have the book. I'm under the subtitle of "Invite Someone to Church." That's where I'm at. If you remember what we were talking about yesterday, the thing that really stuck out to me from yesterday, which I know we had an outstanding discussion. For those of you who were here last night, my hat off to you. That was a really great conversation I thought we had last night, and I'm actually looking forward to another good conversation tonight. So thank you to all of you who participated in that and were here. And if you want to go back and watch it, it's on the channel. And just a really good time of some really good questions you guys had. I mean, really good. I mean, you always have good, but last night was particularly good. So thank you all for that. But and please jump in and let's talk tonight, because I think this is it's a great topic. And I will also say that I might have skipped ahead and looked at the last chapter, and I'm pretty sure we're going to enjoy that conversation too, but we'll get to that point. All right. So after having this whole conversation about about how we share our faith. He talks in the subtitle here about inviting someone to church. And how many of you have? I'm not going to put you on the spot. How can I ask this question and not make you out yourself? Is that intimidating for you? Would you be intimidated to invite somebody to your church? I guess from the vast majority of you here, that would be Wayne Street. But is that something that would be intimidating to you to say, hey, I go to Wayne Street and love to have you join us? Is that something that that would be intimidating for you to do? To go and invite somebody to come. And I'm not going to let you get away with a yes or a no. Expand. What is it about Wayne Street that, the experience of being here that would make you feel like that's something that you would be willing to do? Hi, Cheryl. I'm glad to have you tonight. Yeah. We get, by my definition, we get an impressive amount of visitors here. And yeah, we may get a few, hi, Cheryl. We may get a few who just kind of wander in, which that happens. But I know that the vast majority of the ways that you get visitors in your church is by people inviting. So the fact that we get such, or at least, back when we used to have church, we had a steady stream of visitors. I know that's a steady stream of invitations that are going out. And one of the things that that's good. Okay, so one of the things he talks about here is evidences of who Jesus was talking to, or how Jesus did the role of evangelist. And one of the guys that he was talking about, that Jesus was talking to, that invited people to church, is the woman at the well. Many of you are familiar with the woman at the well. Jesus was kind of hanging out there, and this woman came by, and I don't know that I would recommend doing it the way Jesus did. I guess we're always like, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And that's always a great question to ask. And Jesus is a great example, and he's a great teacher. And I'll give you every bit of that and believe it totally. However, I'm not sure the way that he does evangelism is the way that I would like for all of you to go out and try to do it. You guys remember the conversation he has with the woman at the well? He's sitting at the well. The woman comes over and he strikes up a conversation with her, which would be odd thing number one. She was a Samaritan and he was a Jew. Those are two people who, back when the world was actually racist, that's something that never happened. And was never allowed to happen, was never supposed to happen. I mean, we're talking hardcore government-enforced racism. I mean, that's like it used to be 100 years ago in our country. And, segregation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's exactly how it was. So her first response was, why are you talking to me? Because that's just not something that happened. And so he starts talking to her, which was the first thing where she was like, okay. And then he said, oh, yeah, I'm just going to read your mind and talk to you about stuff that you didn't tell me. Don't do that. If you have a crystal ball and you can read minds and stuff, that might freak people out. I'm not sure that's the way you should go about it. I guess if you could do it with a card trick, that would be awfully impressive. But I'm not sure that's the kind of thing people would be any kind of remotely comfortable with. However, one of the things that really, besides all the hocus pocus reading the mind stuff that Jesus did, one of the things that really got the woman at the well's attention is, and now I'm on page 205. I'm in the paragraph that starts with, when this woman met Jesus at a well. Read that whole sentence. When this woman met Jesus at a well, she noticed that he treated her differently. Obviously, talking to her was very different. Was not something that was typically done. in the way that this was pulled off. So right away, this was something she wasn't used to. Which, I mean, that can be good, that can be bad. I mean, it totally freaks somebody out. Again, probably not the way you want to go with that. But she noticed right off the bat that there was something different about him. And I think that this, not the mind reading thing and the, I'm going to read your palm or whatever it was Jesus did, not that, but just the fact that he spoke to her with respect would have been one thing. The fact that he spoke to her at all would have been one thing. And all of a sudden she's like, there's something, this guy's got something. There's something different about this guy. And I'm telling you, when it comes to inviting people to church, that's the thing that's going to get him here. You guys have listed some very, very wonderful things in the comments here. I'm just like flashing through here, just grabbing a few. Okay, you love the church, love the music, love these 8 p.m. sessions. It depends on who the pastor is at the time, Joyce. I hope you're willing to invite today. I guess that remains to be seen. Invited many to be here. Sermons, the band, connecting with family, loving the people who are here. That's a huge thing. Belonging here. The small groups, worship services are great. All that stuff is great, and those, in my opinion, and we can debate this, but those. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Those things that we recognize are the second level of the invitation. The first thing that people are going to notice is you. You are the first line of invitation. If you're inviting somebody who doesn't like you, I don't care how great of a sell job you put on the church, they're not going to come. If you treat people preppy, you look down your nose at them, you think you're better than them, you put forth an air of arrogance, people are not going to respond well to that. You got to meet them on their level, which is that part Jesus did. That part of the invitation, Jesus got very well, because he spoke to her, not down to her, never do that. But he spoke at her level, and he connected with her in a way that just typically wasn't done. And so that's what got her attention, is the fact that was the first thing she noticed. Then he goes on to talk about living water and just confuses the heck out of her. But his initial approach to her was he connected with her in a meaningful way. And I'm telling you, when it comes to inviting people to church, that's what you got to start with. Because if you're, like I said, if you're a jerk to people, don't smile at people, you're not approachable, you're intimidating, that kind of stuff doesn't attract people. And if that's the kind of persona that you have, that's not going to make them go, gosh, that great endorsement of the church sure sounds great. Maybe I'll go try that. That's not how it works. So the first level of the invitation is you. That's why yesterday, when we were talking about the script he had to memorize for seminary, and they went up to the door and kind of ambushed people and stuff, and they were graded on that. That's not going to work, because there's no rapport. There's no connection. There's no relationship. There's just the sales job. And people don't respond well to that. Are y'all with me? There's a lot of conversation going on in the chat here, but I'm not sure it's about what I'm talking about here. Are y'all with me? Is everybody still here? Invitation begins with connection, begins with relationship. That's what's so very important about, talking to people you have a relationship with, because that's where the invitation begins. And that could even, it doesn't mean you can only invite people that you know. You can go invite people you don't know, but don't go up to them and be a stone-faced, not very friendly, not very approachable, not very conversational. You don't want to be that person. I know most of you whose names are popping up in the chat, and I know that you don't have that problem. But I've seen other people. I mean, we have people even here at Wayne Street who are leaders and just have a hard time with that approachable thing, and that's difficult. They're probably not the person I want to send out to say, "Hey, come to this new service," because they're not gonna connect with people. So, and where where are you, Val? I'm right here. Can't you see me? So, all right. So it's about connecting with. Oh, Cheryl, that's okay. If they live in your house, what I'm talking about here, that's off. If they're living in your house, that's how that goes. That's how that rolls. I'm totally and completely good with that. So, okay. So Jesus then turns the conversation around. He goes from he takes a mundane thing, which is water, and turns it into a conversation about living water. That's kind of a cutesy thing. Jesus can pull that off effectively. I'm not sure I would recommend that to everyone, because to me it's about connecting. It's about connecting, because I really think that's what people are searching for. Everybody has deep theological questions. Everybody has questions about God and salvation, and I mean everybody's got that, and everybody wants to hear about that, and they want to hear somebody with some authority speak about those things. I'm not 100% sure that's where people want to start. I think the first thing they want is they want a connection. It's why back when we used to be able to do it, we would meet for worship services in a place called a sanctuary. The word sanctuary simply means safe place. And if somebody, wants to invite you to a safe place and they're come across as a very stoic, kind of distant person, that's not what you're communicating. And people might be like, I don't know if I'm interested in this. And that can make the invitation get shot down before you even have a chance to truly make it. So, all right. Anybody got a question about that? Oh no, Scott, I've been in those churches too. Again, and whether that goes the other way. If it comes across as insincere, nothing will disrupt your feeling of safety like somebody that you believe is being insincere, because insincere people, even if we're just suspecting they're insincere but don't know it for sure, are very. What is it that you think when you see somebody that you believe is being insincere? What do you think? You think you're up to something. If I perceive that you're insincere, there's an ulterior motive here that I might not know about. And I'm telling you what, nobody feels safe in that situation. And yeah, Cheryl, that's very true. That's why it was called a sanctuary. Used to be back in the day, if you were running from the law, who were trying to arrest you, if you could make it to the church, they couldn't arrest you inside the church. And that's part of where the idea of the sanctuary came from. Oh, hi, Val. I don't. Is my connection spotty tonight? I'm not having any problems on my end. So, all right. Now, one of the things that the woman from the well does, if you remember that story, is after this conversation, she's very impacted by this conversation with Jesus. It's a conversation with Jesus, right? How could she not be? But she's really moved by this. And the first thing that she does is she runs home and says, "Everybody, you got to come see this guy. He's something else. He knew all the stuff about me and all this." Okay, so she was transformed by her experience. She went to tell everybody how important that was to her, because she was changed. She was transformed. So she became the witness for what Jesus could do. That's a formula that is absolutely working exactly like that still to this day. She had an encounter with Jesus and it changed her. And because she was transformed, she became a great evangelist herself and brought a bunch of people. But that's because she was changed. And people looked at her and said, wow, there's something did happen. Because when people experience a fundamental shift, it doesn't take long for people who know you to realize something's going on. And so the sincerity, again, back to the sincerity thing, the sincerity of her transformation was so impactful that people just flocked back to Jesus following this lady. And she became a great evangelist for that. So, okay. I'm skipping over now to page 205. And here is here is where I'm in the paragraph that's on page 205. I'm in the paragraph that starts with, you can make a similar difference in people's lives with a simple invitation. The note that I made on this sentence, and let me read it to you again. You can make a similar difference in people's lives with a simple invitation. The note that I made here, and because this is probably going to come back up later, is the word he uses here is very specific. You can make a similar difference in people's lives with a simple invitation. He does not say explanation. He says invitation. Do you see the difference? The difference is she invited people to come. I mean, literally, if you go read the account from the Gospel of John, she has a hard time even explaining exactly what happened. She doesn't even try. She's like, this is amazing. I'd like to invite you to come see this for yourself. I'd like to invite you to come experience this for yourself. It wasn't like she was trying to, give this great theological dissertation on the presence of Christ. It was about, I was in his presence and there is nothing else like it. I'd love for you to come and try this out. So it was the invitation that made the difference, not the explanation. Because I think sometimes, and even in this chapter, he wants to jump to the explanation. Here's why all this is happening, and that's why this great thing is going on. And I think we get too bogged down in that. I think that the big thing that people want is an invitation. Come and see for yourself. If you're interested in knowing what it did for me, I'll be happy to tell you. But I really like if you come see it for yourself. And some of these things that we do, and I'm seeing a few of them pop up here in the chat, these are invitations, Teresa says she paid for groceries for somebody at the store and then listen and pray with them right there. It's an invitation. I'm sure that, Teresa, you didn't, the person wasn't, reaching for their credit card and you like shoved them out of the way and started paying for stuff and told them to go to church or they're going to hell. I'm going to guess, Teresa, since I know you probably didn't do that. But that became an opportunity for an invitation, not an explanation. I'm not explaining why I'm doing this. I'm inviting you to step into the presence of Christ through what we're doing here. Tina and Mike, and I met your parents last week. It was super cool. And, and that was very nice because you just invited them. You want to know what's so great about Wayne Street? Well, I'll tell you what, we'll save you a parking spot, which that's where we live in now. But yeah, but that works. And so when they got to come and see for themselves. Cheryl says several people told me the invitation to come as you are has made a difference in there. I believe that. I thought you meant come as you are to the worship service because I have shorts on right now. That's what I thought you meant. I didn't realize that was a thing. So, yeah. And the small group connections are very important. Hopefully some year soon we'll be able to have small groups again and start to restart some of those things. Candy says, I was invited to attend a church for my coworker when I lived in Atlanta. It was a wonderful church that I attended for over 9 years. Yep. Invitation, not explanation. And he's actually, now, and we could talk about whether or not this actually happens, but I think he actually contradicts what he says here later in this chapter. And we're going to get to that. But I think the invitation is far more important than the explanation. Now, if you give an invitation and somebody says, hey, I'd like to tell me a little more. Okay, doors open, explanation time happens. And you should be ready to do that. But I think that the invitation in importance, I don't think there's even any comparison. The invitation is far more important than the explanation. Explaining what's going to or explaining what happens, or explaining why you think it's important, or explaining why it's meaningful to you, or explaining how your life was transformed. Again, if they want to hear that, by all means tell them. But I don't think that's what we want to force on people. It's the invitation we want to. Well, we don't want to force that on people either, but that's what we want to give. The idea of inviting, not explaining. And I think that's how people's lives get changed. It's the invitation that changes them, not the explanation. Does that make sense? What I'm talking about here making sense? You guys are giving me some great examples here, so I think you're getting it. But does that make sense? How the invitation is what's really important, far more important than the explanation of what's happening. I think sometimes people want to jump to the explanation too fast, and the explanation grows into the invitation instead of the other way around. If you really want somebody to come to Wayne Street or really any church, or honestly, if you want them to come experience anything along with you, you want them to come see a movie with you, go on a date with you, go out to dinner with you, whatever it is you're inviting, the invitation has to precede the explanation. And that's extremely important. And a lot of times we want to jump to the explanation because the explanation is about us, where the invitation is about them. And that's what, in my very humble opinion, that's what we have to fight. Because if you want somebody to come experience something with you, the invitation has to be first. And again, if they ask or they really want to know, yes, explain away. But don't lead with that. I think the invitation is far more important to lead with. He goes on to talk about how he tells this funny story. I didn't really understand why he was telling it, but it's a hilarious story. I've had similar experiences to this a couple of times. He said he was at a video rental store, which kind of dates this book a little bit. But he was at a video rental store and he heard two people talking about going to a church, and he was kind of eavesdropping on their conversation, realized they were talking about his church. Well, not unfortunately, I guess, but made the story so funny is that they had either one of the associate pastors or a guest pastor who preached the previous Sunday. I don't remember which one it was. And so this one lady's talking to the other lady about how great the church is, and she should definitely come. And so the pastor, Craig, kind of walks around the corner and thinking, great. And these two ladies are talking, and he goes, "Oh, you're talking about going to church," thinking they'd recognize him. They didn't. And the lady goes, "Yeah, it's great." And so he snidely asked, "Well, what about the pastor?" She goes, "Oh, he's dynamic." And then she proceeded to describe the guest pastor they had the previous week and how great he was. Turns out that was the first Sunday she'd ever been at the church. She thought the guy that spoke was the senior pastor, not realizing she's actually talking to the pastor. The church was a completely different man. But she was so moved by her experience that she was inviting this other lady in the video store, not recognizing that the pastor of the church was standing right there. And he just walked away. He didn't bother to try to explain it to her. I mean, at that point, all you're going to do is embarrass the lady. But I found the story to be hilarious. I'm not sure what the point of it was. That's a funny story. You have to admit that's a pretty funny story. I've had a couple of experiences where people have ran into me outside of church. Now, I don't present myself as a super professional all the time. I wear Batman t-shirts to awaken and stuff like that. And so when people see me out in public, I actually look very similar to I look at least in the Awaken service. But I've had times earlier in my career where people would bump into me other places and not realize who I was. And the funny thing was, it wasn't until I talked. It was the sound of my voice that made them realize who I was. Because back in the day before, YouTube videos and stuff, well, the pastor's like way up there. And if you're sitting in the back of the sanctuary, because y'all know that's where y'all like to sit, they wouldn't know what I looked like up close. Now, I sound the same, but, I apparently look different from that far away. And it was just kind of funny. So I have had that happen actually a couple of times. People that recognize me by my very distinct sounding voice, which I'm never sure how to take that. But But I just thought it was a funny story about people who are excited to go out and invite. I believe the point he was making was how new believers are great at this because they found something cool, something that really connects with them, have a great experience, and just like anything that you enjoy, you want to share it. And that's exactly what this lady did. She came to church the previous week, heard this guest pastor who came in to talk, really thought he was something else, loved the music, and wanted to go out and share that. Not realizing when she comes back the next week, it's not going to be that guy again. So I hope she kept coming to the church. I don't believe he told us whether or not she came back after that, but new believers are very good at that. I think that's because they haven't had time to formulate the explanation yet, but they're like the blind man. Look, I don't know if he's a sinner. The blind man said about Jesus. He said, look, I don't know if he's a sinner or not, but here's what I can tell you. I was blind and now I see. I do know that. I can't explain how that happened, but that's a pretty good sales pitch if you ask me. Kind of same thing as here. New believers don't have all the theological mumbo jumbo and mental gymnastics it takes to explain some of this stuff. They just know the experience was meaningful and they want to share it. That's evangelism. And sometimes, again, we bog down the message with the messenger by worrying too much about explaining and not enough about inviting. In fact, in some cases, I think it actually goes so far as trying to excuse the fact that, I go to church instead of trying to invite. And sometimes I think people run into that. And I got a little ahead of myself. All right, the very next section. Now I'm on page. Come on, 206. He talks about the blind man that I just referenced, and the blind man again, who had no basis in theology, had no explanation to give. They drug him before the court. Said, "Explain yourself." He's like, "Dude, I can't. All I know is I could not see, and now I can. That's all I can tell you. I know nothing else." Is he a sinner? Is he a saint? Is he a demon? Is he a god? I have no idea. But I'm telling you this, I could not see. He put his hands on my eyes and bam, had my eyes open for the first time. And I think that's an important thing because the experience of the whole thing is what he was selling. What was the experience? The experience was the removal of a burden. I had a burden lifted. In his particular case, it was a physical burden, but he had a burden lifted. And I think that people who have been away from the church or maybe never been churched before, they come in and find out we're not a bunch of bigots like we're made out to be. And they find out there's really a transformational nature to this. They experience that. They learn about grace and forgiveness and mercy. That really connects with them. And they want to go share that. They can't necessarily explain it, but they certainly want to share it. And I think many of us who've been around this for a long time would do very well to try to reclaim some of that invitational nature of our experience. And, Cheryl, I'm sure that's probably true. Obviously, they're not deep-seated theologians after one Sunday, but I'm not sure. I mean, that there can be a negative to that. I'll definitely give you that, but I think them having enjoyed the experience for a long time, I think people did not enjoy the experience of going to church because it did not connect with them where they were. And I think today we in the church have figured out that connecting with people is actually what we're supposed to be doing. Now, that doesn't mean we compromise our principles. It doesn't mean we compromise our teaching. It doesn't mean we compromise our theology or our faith. Certainly not. But at the same time, I think within those parameters, we can offer people an experience that's positive enough that they will want to come back and experience more. I mean, we see that a lot here at Wayne Street. And I think that's an important piece to allow people to wrestle with. So that's a miracle service I have experienced at Only Believe Ministries. What's a miracle service, Val? I'm not sure what you're talking about. So, okay. Yeah, he even kind of says this, Cheryl. One of the on page 206, he says, even though this newly healed man didn't know enough to debate theology, which he didn't. He only had this experience a couple of days prior to this. He was an expert on one topic, and that was he was an expert on his experience. And because his experience was so overwhelmingly positive, he wasn't afraid to share that with people. Which always makes me wonder, because I agree with that. Look, if you go, like when I went to see Avengers Endgame, one of the greatest movies ever made, when I left that movie, what did I want to do? I want to tell everybody, get off your rear end and go see this movie. It's fantastic. Or if I've perfect example. 2 weeks ago, I went to Dairy Queen, had one of those stupid frosted animal cracker blizzards. And what have I talked about every freaking night on this live stream since? I've figured out a way to work those in because they're good. And because I enjoyed my experience with that, I want to share it with you guys. And talk about, how that is. I was having a joke in here about somebody winning that Milky Way candy bar, and I'm not going to out the person, but one of you did win it, and got to take home the spoils yesterday. They came into the church office, and they answered a question in the way that pleased me, so they got the candy bar. And if that person wants to say who they are, they may go ahead, but I'm not going to out you. So, but that's where we were. And I think that when people have a positive experience, if there are 30 of you logged in here tonight, it's because you have had a positive experience here. On other nights we have a live stream, and if I got on here and I started yelling and screaming and ranting and raving or whatever, you wouldn't come back. But because you're having a positive experience, you want to share that with others, and I think that's great. And Cheryl says, by religion, I mean the rules and politics and be a part of churches. And by George, we try to guard new people away from that. There's a reason why you don't get on the BLT here your third Sunday attending. And that's, I wouldn't want to do that. So, Ange finally had one. Hashtag DQ, you got it. Ange, how was it? Got to know. How was your experience at the Frosted Animal Cracker Blizzard? It's okay if you didn't like it. I just won't be your friend anymore. You should just know that up front. But all right. Okay. Now, y'all have been a part of the discussion for the last 44 minutes, according to my clock. So for the last, here we go, 42 minutes and 49 seconds that we've been talking, minus my aside for my obligatory Frosted Animal Cracker Blizzard from Dairy Queen talk that I have to have every night. He's talking about the experience. And again, I'm boiling it down to say he's made his case, and I think very effectively, that the invitation is far more important than the explanation. Now, he doesn't actually say those words. That's kind of my paraphrase of it. But I think that's up to this point, that's been a faithful paraphrase of what he's giving you. And I think that I would wholeheartedly agree with that. The invitation is much more important than the explanation. And that's what he's done. Now, when I turn the page, then, and now I'm on page, where am I at? 207. He, at least in my opinion, those of you who have the book can disagree with this if you want, but I feel like he contradicts himself here. He's got a really good thing going, and this is the part where I have a problem. Is he says, if you want to evangelize people, and I mark this here, he says, come up with a situation where he says, let me tell you my story. That's what he says. I'm on page, like I said, what, 20, what is it, 207. He says, let me tell you my story. He just had this, what I consider to be a brilliant, eloquent discussion on the invitation being more important than the explanation. And he says, if you want to go evangelize somebody, here's how you do your explanation. See, I just don't know. As a pastor of the church, present company excluded, of course, I get to hear a lot of this explanation from people. I go out and visit people, and they just love telling me stories. I'm telling you, it is hard to connect to them. I know people love telling their story because their story is meaningful to them. So I'm not discounting that. What I'm saying, and obviously, I'm not going out to these people's house so they can evangelize me. I'm kind of beyond that. But if a new believer were to come and have a conversation with these folks, and all you want to do is talk about how great your experience was and continue giving the explanation of why it's so good, I'm telling you, I don't think that's going to sell people on the idea. Some people it might, but that wouldn't work on me. I've had a lot of people come and say, here's why this organization is a great organization to join, because everybody wants the pastor to join their organization. And some organizations I look at and I think they're good and doing good work, and I can't wait to get involved. Other organizations I don't have time for. I don't care how wonderful you think they are. I've got to limit it somewhere. So that's why I have to be very careful. And if one of the reasons you want me to join is because you've had this great explanation with it, I that just doesn't resonate with me. I'm so happy that you're happy about it. I would rather you let me make up my own mind. Again, maybe I'm the one doing the contradiction here. But I just don't think, because he even says it here. He says, have a worked up testimony that you want to use to give to somebody. I say don't do that, because some people are going to love that. There are some people out there who love listening to people's testimonies and stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, that ain't this guy. I know there's a lot of people, not a lot, but there's been a few people who are like, oh, we should have people give testimonies in church. And I'm just like, why? I don't want to sleep during church. And look, I know, and again, Guatemala, I know there are some cultures who love that. That's great. I'm just telling you, that doesn't work across the board. And I think that to go with a one size fits all, I don't know. That's why I think the invitation is more important than the explanation. And I feel like that's what he was saying up to this point. And now he's going, and here's how you explain it. And I don't know. And yeah, Cheryl, and see, and that's a whole different, and again, I'm not against sharing. I mean, there are people out there with a powerful testimony, and that's great. But that's it. If you're going out to share, that's one thing. If you're trying to convince, that's a whole different thing. If your goal is I want to connect with you as a person, then telling stories is excellent. That's why people love telling me stories. They're trying to connect with me. I totally, completely, absolutely get that. And that is valid and that is important. However, if your goal is to somehow impact my life, telling me about you is not gonna pull that off. So again, it depends on your desired outcome. Yes, if the idea is the place where that at least the guise it as evangelism is the place where that belongs. Do y'all see the distinction I'm making? If one of you were to have me over to your house and you came over and we were kind of having a conversation and I told a story about, some crazy adventure I was a part of at one point, we all sit back and laugh. And when I get to the end of the story, you're going to say, well, I think I know Tim better. Maybe that explains why he is the way he is. I don't know. But I don't know that I would tell that story and people would be like, well, gosh, I would like to go chase a giant water buffalo too. I have a giant water buffalo story. Don't. That's what it is. I think when I'm sharing about me, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm sharing about me. I think if I'm going to go share about Jesus, then that's what I'll be doing, is sharing about Jesus. And I think when you share about Jesus, you're inviting them. It would be like me saying, all right, who do I get to pick on in the chat over here? Let me pull out some random person and pick on them. Who have I got here? All right, Eric Germann. Eric Germann just drew the short straw on this one. So let's say Eric Germann is the world's #1 greatest Cincinnati Reds fan. He knows every statistic going clear back to their wire-to-wire championship in 1990. He has a Barry Larkin autographed poster in his house, and he has a man crush on Ken Griffey Jr. Okay, so let's say all that's true, and I think that it might be. But anyways, So if I want to introduce you to Eric Germann, do I go up to you and I say, I'm a great Reds fan, and I follow them all the time, whether they're winning or losing. And I love going to Great American Ballpark, and I've got a couple of baseballs that I've caught that are foul balls. I don't, but I enjoy that, and it's just great. And you should meet Eric because he is too. Friends, I've just made you excited about me being excited about the Reds, not Eric. So if my goal here is to help you know Eric better, what I should say is, hey, I want to introduce you to Eric Germann. That's what I should say, because Eric is a great guy with a big smile and a wonderful family. He's got 2 little kids, and he's got a brilliant wife who's about to get a new job and all this stuff. Right. That's what I would say. But me being or not being a Reds fan is irrelevant to the story. What I want to say is, I'm excited about Eric. I want to introduce you to him. And I think evangelism should be the same. I'm excited about Jesus, and I love my church, and I want you to come and experience this. I don't think I need to say anymore. Do y'all see what I'm saying here? I think for me to work up a great explanation about why I think Eric is awesome, I don't know that helps. You don't need all that background information. If I want to introduce you to Eric, and we find out he's actually a serial killer, then you might wonder whether or not I like you that much. If I'm saying, hey, Eric, look, you should really take this guy, right? That's not how this works. Okay, if I'm going to take my time and effort to say, I really would like to invite you to meet my friend Eric, and I come over and we meet and talk, and you guys hit it off well, and now you're friends, that's great. But for me to say all this stuff about Eric, I'm not sure that makes you more excited to meet him. Am I making sense? Somebody besides Eric, tell me if I'm making sense, because Eric's firmly under the bus at this point. Somebody tell me if this makes any sense. And I think if you're going to evangelize to get people to come into Jesus' presence, I think the fact that it means something to you is implicit in the invitation. Unless you decide you don't like somebody, you're not going to invite them into the presence of somebody that doesn't mean something to you. And I think that's where the thing breaks down. And I think for me to say, I'm really excited about Eric Germann, and I really would love for you to meet him and meet his kids and let him tell you about all this stuff. I think that's great. I don't know that I need to say anything more than that. I'd let Eric speak for himself. I don't need to prep anybody to say, now you better brush up on your Reds trivia or Eric's going to make fun of you. I don't need to say that. I have enough respect for Eric that I'll let the experience of Eric to speak for himself. I feel the same way about Jesus. I think enough of Jesus that I'll let the experience speak for itself. And I think that's a far more powerful invitation than for me to have to go through a great explanation. Now, the person may say, "Oh, so you love Wayne Street." Now, obviously, in my case, people know why I go here. But for one of you, may say, "Oh, I should come to Wayne Street," and they may say, "What is it about Wayne Street that you like?" Bam! That's what we call open door. You charge through an open door with your head down and your teeth bared. Go guns blazing at that point. But I don't know you need to start there, because somebody may say, I've been looking for a church, and if you like it there, maybe I'll like it there. And I just don't know. Besides the invitation to bring people in, I don't know that Jesus needs any more help than that. Honestly, I don't think Eric even needs any more help than that. I think he solves himself just fine. But I think at the end of this whole experience, I think that if you think enough of Jesus and you think enough of Wayne Street, let it speak for itself. Let the invitation be enough. Make sure the invitation is there, but let the invitation be enough. Tim says here, Jesus doesn't need us to be a salesman. We will never do as good a job as he can do himself. That's obviously true, and I completely agree. Tina and Mike say yes, because they might see things differently than you and take away something totally different. Yes. Because look, there are 27 of us logged in right now. If we all got on and shared, just a minute about our experience of Jesus, there ain't gonna be two of us the same. You know, I really had my encounter with Jesus on the side of a volcano in the Philippines. True story. You know, and I venture to say that none of you could top, or not top, but none of you could match that one. Even though, you know, you met Jesus a lot of different places, I've never met him because I've never been there. But I'm a firm believer in letting the Savior of the universe speak for himself. And I don't know how much help he needs, other than me getting them into his presence. Because I'm pretty sure that once we get there, uh, doubt is just eradicated. You know, so I don't know. I just I'm not trying to downplay testimonies, and I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't, you know, that they're evil or anything like that. I'm not saying anything like that. But I'm just saying when it comes to trying to allow people the chance to have an experience of Christ, uh, I think Jesus can handle that. It is our job to get people into his presence. And if you believe that the church you attend, you know, be it here at Wayne Street or someplace else, that Jesus is present, that's good enough. All we need to do is get people in the door, and the Holy Spirit will have no problem taking it from there. Now, if that person's heart is super hard, that may create a challenging situation that might need a little more help, but that can happen after Jesus gets a shot at it first. And it's my contention that if you invite a person and their heart is too hard to be receptive, they're not going to accept your invitation anyways. And no amount of you talking, I mean, maybe it would, but I don't see that being something that would convince them to get them over the hump. So all right, he goes on to talk about he goes on to talk a little bit about an evangelism tactic that they were using in Los Angeles, about how they were going around to you know, crack dealers and prostitutes and trying to figure out a way to get into their life. And what they did is on Saturdays they would go around and just be a servant to the community. They would go around and offer to clean or paint or minor repair work and things like that to these people's houses, and use that as an invitation to just get to know them, not evangelize them, but just make their presence known. And I'm telling you, folks, there's nothing like faithful action to make the presence of Christ become painfully aware to everybody around. And that's something I would always encourage to you. You know, back when we used to be able to do mission work around town, and I hope to God we can get back to that sometime. But you know, that would be a way. That's why I got involved in like every organization here in town I possibly could, because I went there to represent Wayne Street, to figure out how Wayne Street can, you know, ride along with whatever the organization is to try to present Jesus to people. And I think that's a very worthy goal, at least as far as I'm concerned. Val Cisco is asking me, do you think revivals is too much? I'm not sure too much of what. Cheryl, that is exactly what kids used to do through work camp. That is exactly right. My experience of revivals, Val, and again, I'm not saying they're evil. I'm not saying they're bad. I am saying they rely a lot on emotion. And they are very emotional experiences. And look, there are times that we need to have an emotional encounter with Christ. I am not discounting that. However, I've also found that the conversions that come out of revivals last as long as the emotion does. And as soon as the emotion changes, everything else goes with it. So I'm not saying it happens that way every time, and I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that I have been around some of those. And the transformation that comes from them seems to last as long as the emotion does, for the most part. And that's, again, there are times that we need to have an emotional experience in the presence of Christ. And sometimes it takes a revival service to facilitate that. So I am all for that. But to think that a revival service, I mean, I know they did a lot of great work through Revival Ohio. I know I was involved in that when it was up in Lima, and that was great. But sustaining something like that is hard work, and they do great work. I'm not, and I'm not following that. And if Revival Ohio, tries to get itself back and do another round of it, you better believe that Pastor Tim and Wayne Street will be right out there in front of it. But I also, think that there's good and bad that goes with it. So, yeah. He goes on to tell a little story here about a woman at 7-Eleven. He had and I thought this was a very sweet story. As an event, because he was talking about how little things can make a big difference. And let me tell you something, that is truth. And one thing he would do is he would wear a little pin, and it had a cross or some kind of Christian symbol. And he made it a point that if somebody mentioned it or asked about it, he gave it to him. And he's talking about one that he gave to a woman at a 7-Eleven, and years later, she actually came to his church to show him she still had it, even though he obviously didn't remember her. And that's a great a way for him to witness to other people and give them something tangible. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And March Tangema says, don't totally agree. If it's sincere, it'll last a long time. If it's sincere, that's a big if. I'm not being down on revivals. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying my experience with them in the past has been the vast majority of whatever ground is gained lasts as long as the emotion does. And because the problem with revivals is that they have a hard time maintaining that high level of energy and that high level of emotion. And that's why I think that revivals work best when they do it like Revival Ohio did, and they have these revivals, and then they feed people into the local churches. I think that is exactly how it should be done, to connect people with local churches and how important that is. And I think that's a very important thing, because without discipleship, what is it then? What's happening? And that's why I'm concerned about the number of people even who attend here at Wayne Street who are not interested and not engaged in any kind of discipleship. That's a case of no growing. There's no spiritual nutrition that goes on with that, which is why it's difficult to maintain that for very long. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that I have not had great experiences with them when they've come through towns where I've served at in the past. That's really all I'm saying. And well, you're welcome, Val. So, all right. Okay, he's got a few more points he makes in here, but nothing earth shattering, I don't think. Yes, Cheryl, that is exactly what is supposed to happen, and that's what sustains a marriage for the long haul. Because the level of intensity in the beginning we physically cannot maintain that, and that becomes a very, very problematic when both members of the marriage don't commit themselves to work on that. So that I could not agree more. So. All right, folks. I believe we have come to the end of the chapter. Good discussion tonight. I had a tough time getting you guys warmed up, but you did well there toward the end. So good. Tomorrow we're going to begin chapter 12, which is when you believe in God but not His church, which I think is a very actually good continuation of the conversation we were just having. So I think that's going to be a very good way to continue to talk about this, because I'm not sure we've hit the end of this yet. And Tim Dickey says the Gideons give out Bibles. Simply putting the word of God in someone's hands and letting that do the work can make the difference. Yes. I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for the Gideons, Tim. Absolutely. And I love God's word. So that's why I love the Gideons. And that's an organization, like I said, I have a very soft spot for. And I love what they do. And I, for the most part, love how they do it. So. End of this chapter was very touching. Reminded me of the Thank You by Ray Boltz. Boy, there's a classic old 80s, one of the very first kind of contemporary Christian songs. And oh, yes, about this. Yeah, he had a chance to go talk to another man who was kind of in the same situation as, I forget the other guy's name, who was basically at the end of his life. And he went in to talk to him and really managed to get through to him. And again, I've had that conversation with people, and sometimes you got to stick to your guns, because he actually basically got thrown out of the guy's hospital room, and he said, "Nah, I'm not getting thrown out today," and he went back, which was a pretty gutsy move, you have to admit. And he went back and then actually made some headway with the guy. And honestly, I have found that people who are that actively opposed to it are the people who are begging for it. They just want somebody to push through the whatever. And thankfully to Mark, he did. So, oh, Joyce, don't be making me feel bad. I know, but I just I feel like we just need a season to catch our breath here a little. I think that what we're going to do is like next winter, when the weather starts to turn to garbage again, we may have some series where we'll go back to an every night format when the weather's bad and nobody can get out. But we're gonna maintain this, and we may find out once a week is not enough. If we're missing it that much, we may go back up to 2 or 3 nights a week to do this. But our numbers drop so low, especially with the weekend, that I'm not sure I'm being a good steward of your time. And no, Joyce, I know you didn't. And what do I always say? The party don't start till you get here, right? And maybe, hey, what would you all think? Maybe I should set up Joyce to lead the live stream. Would you guys like that? I take my computer over to her house and we can have Joyce Koenig put her face here instead of mine. What would you guys think of that? You guys have more fun and you know what to do with if I pulled that one off. So we could have the Who Can Stump Joyce Koenig night. Because y'all know none of you are going to be able to do that because Joyce would put you all in your place. I love it. So, all right. We could have everybody take on Eric Germann night. Everybody bring out your Reds trivia and let Eric put down all challengers on who's the biggest Reds fan ever. So, there may be some potential with that. Yeah, Eric, I knew you'd be up for it. So, yeah, maybe we should do that. Have some guest people here. We could set up in the sanctuary and do that with the camera. Oh, Joyce will be on pain meds. This could be even more fun than I realized. Wow. Now you got me thinking a minute here. Would any of you come on and guest host with me if I did a few of these? If you'd be willing to guest host with me, you can put in the chat if you want, or let me know. If that's something you'd be willing to do, come in and do one of these. Maybe we will do more than one a week. I could come in and interview you because I realize not all of you know each other. And I could bring people in and just have an interview or a conversation, or even you guys could pick that person's brain. Mike, we ain't having Mike without Tina, and we're not throwing Mike under the bus here. And even Angie Myers, sweet, innocent Angie Myers, says it would be fun to have Joyce in here. And Joyce says no. Joyce, how could you? I'm sure Tim Dickey. I don't doubt that. You're a Red fan too. No, I do like the idea of the interview too, Cheryl. That could be fun. Hmm. Why did y'all wait until like after 3 months and now think of this? Uh, I could have been doing this the whole time, you guys. Jeez, all this work I'm doing here, and now you're like, give us somebody else. So, gosh, yeah, I love you guys. So, all right. Hey, Joyce on pain meds would be a blast. I definitely think that we're gonna have to do that one. That would be a complete blast. Um, yeah, we could have a lot of fun with that one. But all right, let's we'll hash this over the next couple of nights and find out what we're doing here. And I liked when the kids had Lynn there. Suze, what do you mean? You liked when the kids had Lynn there? Joyce, the doctor Cheryl Cuck says, Joyce, if you're on pain meds, it won't hurt. I mean, she's not wrong. So, Lynn Persinger. I had forgotten about that. That's exactly right. I forgot about that. Hmm. All right, you guys are giving me some stuff to think about, and I'm going to think about that. All right, tomorrow night we're going to start with chapter 12. We'll spend 2 nights on chapter 12 talking about believing God, but not necessarily his church. And there's a lot of people in that category, and I want you guys to be honest about that when we're talking about it, because the church does have problems, both Wayne Street Church and Church with a capital C, and the Methodist Church all have issues. Today was the Episcopal address. See, I'm supposed to be an annual conference right now, but it was canceled because of COVID-19, and the bishop did his Episcopal address today, and I don't know if I should say this. I was a little disappointed, but that's kind of where we are. So, all right. Anyways, all right. Oh my gosh, it's 9:15. Why don't you guys tell me to shut up? All right, guys. Hey, I love you all very much. I hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Go get some sleep. Don't get rained on. And we'll be back here tomorrow night to talk about when you believe in God, but not in his church. I love you all very much. And y'all know what you need to do now, right? Go wash them hands.